Welcome back. This time is for you. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna set the stage a little bit at a very high level, and then I've asked each of the product managers here in not that order, but in the order of Jon Shelley, who takes care of PBS Pro, along with Sam Goosen, who takes care of PBS Pro, Dario, Dorella, who takes care of Compute Manager, Display Manager, and Alhad, Joshi, who takes care of Analytics. To say like one or two things among the 50 things they're working on that they find sort of interesting, and I tried to restrict them down to just a couple of things. And then we could talk for a really long time, and we will if you don't ask questions, so we'll see what happens. But I tried to make it so we would only talk for like 20 minutes total, and then we would just open it up for Q&A. And if it really gets bad, I'll start asking you questions. Okay, so okay, really high level. Here's what we're working on. We're focused on end user stuff with Compute and Display Manager, and the main focus of what we're doing there is making stuff easier. That's it. That's the main focus. So we're trying to make things really seamless, natural, enjoyable, easy. I'll go to the other side. For managers, for administrators, we're actually focused on building tools for managers and administrators now. And our focus there is trying to provide more transparency so you can actually see what's going on in the system, which is really important, and trying to give you tools to be more agile so that you can actually change the system to fit into your environment the way you want it to fit in. And then in the middle, mostly PBS Professional, we're focused on lots and lots of stuff, but I reduced it to we're making it faster. We're trying to keep it as reliable as possible and making it, and hopefully make it more reliable, or at least catch the errors. And we're trying to streamline processes. So, normally I give really huge long lists of where we're going and stuff, but I'm not going to do that this time. But when you ask me questions, I will, and I'll fill in. And I just wanted to say one thing, and I know some of you have already seen this before, but we've employed a sort of a really interactive process when we're actually doing and deploying, and creating new capabilities. So the process that we've been using has been really successful the last couple of years. 13.0 is sort of the first release that has come out with this process. And it has a ton of stuff in it, and the stuff seems to be resonating really well with all of you, although you should tell me and tell these guys. Which is that we're prototyping stuff. Either we invent something, or we most likely hear from one of you guys what you want. And then we sit down with you and we prototype it and we iterate with you instead of listening to you and going off into our hole and then coming back a year later and saying, here you go. So now we're actually doing a much faster iteration and we prototype stuff. After we get something working for you, we'll try to take it to one or two other people. As many as we can find usually, but not too many because we're human and we can't travel the world for too long. But we want it to work with, say, at least 3, half a dozen would be great. Actual people, so we know it serves an actual need in the community, and then we'll actually release it GA. So we're spending more time being way more customer focused. And this doesn't mean we only take ideas from you guys, but it does mean that even ideas that we invent ourselves, we actually go out and find someone from the community who's interested. And there's a really broad community of 1,000 or 2,000 people using PBS Professional. And so there's always some crazy wacko who believes that whatever we came up with is actually something they might want, and so we believe we can find that among that big enough community, and so we shouldn't do it on our own. If we can't find somebody who likes our idea, it's probably not a good idea. And so that's what we're doing. 1, 2, 3. I think I only had 3 slides, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jon.
All right.
So, and we'll go ahead and talk first for this 20 minutes, and then we'll either have a conversation among ourselves, because I don't get together with all the guys all the time, or we'll have a conversation with you. Go ahead.
All right. Well, this last 18 months I've been in the product management team. I've been traveling quite a bit, going through Bill's process. Some of the things that we've worked on were TPP, which is the scalability. Another thing I've been working on for a year now is about what we call the PBS Control Center, and we're going to be showing that. It's meant to target to the admins to help them monitor their cluster, see what's going on, troubleshoot jobs, and make some changes. And that, I believe, is coming out beta at the end of this month. So if there's people that like to try that out, come talk to me. We can show a demo and then help you install it on your systems if you are a good fit, and go forward with that. The other thing we've been working on is scalability. Scalability in 12, we weren't scaling that well. 14,000 node clusters were challenging us a little more. With this new improvement, we're not running out of privileged ports. We're handling moms a lot better, and we've tested it up to 70,000 moms. And we found we had some problems there, so I'm continuing to work on it, and our goal is to get over 100,000 moms, which will help us go into that scalability of the millions of cores and other areas. And also I've been working on scalability in terms of throughput. How many jobs can we run? Right now in 12.0 we were about 12 to 18 jobs a second. Now I've seen numbers on customers in the ballpark of 70 to 120 jobs a second. So we're getting a lot more throughput that way. But don't worry, we can always slow you down with a hook, so we're good there. If that's too much speed for you. I know that may be for NCI, so we'll try to slow them down. And the other thing I focused on was usability. Usability in 13.0, we've improved some of the usability commands. Well, in my mind, we improved PBS nodes. Now you can get a JSON output of PBS nodes. You can get a tab or a delimiter, I can't even think of it, delimiter separated value. You choose what you want to delimit it with. Also, we give you a one-line summary of PBS nodes so you can see what's on there and what jobs are on there. And we've taken that out to other people and shown it to them. So got quite a bit of feedback. I hope you're happy with those usability things, but those are some of the areas that I'm concerned about and that I've been working on. So.
Cool, thank you. And like I said, hold those questions just for a minute here. Next up, Sam Goosen. You don't have to stand. You can sit if you want. It's okay. Well, wait. Let's take a poll. How many people think it's okay for Sam to sit? Ooh, only 2 hands. Hi, Sam. You got to stand up.
All right. So, been working on a lot of different things. I do a lot of work with different releases and different branches for different customers. One of the things, more specifically, that we're working on are improvements for our weather customers. I know Bill showed a slide earlier that listed tons of sites around the world, and we're trying to make things even better for them. This picture here is actually from the UK Met Office this morning, so if anybody's wondering what their weather's like back home, that's yeah, it's raining in London. What do you know? No, just kidding. So the things we're working on are, as John mentioned, performance improvements. Weather customers tend to have very diverse workloads, and they're also very time-dependent forecast jobs. And it's kind of a conflict there, what's going to get run. And PBS, quite honestly, has struggled with that kind of a workload. And with the performance improvements John was talking about, asynchronous job launch, things like that, we're hoping to be able to better satisfy the sites, get better utilization on their clusters. Specifically in features that we're working on, weather sites tend to fall into 2 groups. They're either preempt by suspend or reservations to get their workloads scheduled. And for the reservation folks, we're going to be making improvements that make reservations more useful, we hope. We'll be able to move whether your weather data comes in late, you want to start your forecast job later, but there's a reservation already set aside, that you'll be able to move the start time of the reservation back. If your forecast is running long, you don't want it to get killed by your reservation, so you can move the end time of your reservation out and just do a few things like that to help make it more functional in the weather workload. And then also, one thing, and John didn't mention this either, it's one of his projects actually, we're working on estimated wall times. A lot of people are hesitant to use wall times because when you reach the end of your wall time, your job gets killed. And one of the things we're working on is the ability to say, I think my job is going to run for 24 hours. And then you might also give a little bit longer real wall time. So for backfilling and things like that, we'll use the estimated wall time. And then once we reach that, if your job runs a little long, well, okay, you've got the real wall time a little later to really enforce things. Another feature that we're working on, and I was happy to see this on Simon's slide, is the ability to do conditional requests. Use things like greater than, less than, not equal to, or. And there's an example of what you might have in a select statement. You can say 1 of 16 gig or 2 of 8 gig, and it makes things more flexible on where your job can run. If anybody is interested in trying this out, let me know. I'd be glad to get you a package and you can run on your test clusters or whatever. Let me know what you think.
And he made this slide before you talked.
Yeah.
Really.
So, all right. And then the last thing I wanted to mention for one of our other PMs that couldn't be here, we're adding a lot of new features. We're trying to also help those people that have gotten to use Windows as their HPC environment. And we're trying to bring it up to Windows support onto a par with the Linux and other Nixes. And so we're adding things better, stage in, stage out, support UNC file paths, things like that. So if anybody has a Windows cluster, come talk to us too. If you have a certain pain point that you think we might be able to help you with, we'd love to hear about that too. So, right.
Cool, thanks. Next up, and I think this is an auto roll. When I push this button, you're up. Dario, Dorella.
Okay, so Display and Compute Manager 13.0 are about to be published on our website. We worked on making them a little bit smoother than what they were in the past. So we introduced the ability to use push-based notifications to update the status of jobs. That is what you saw in the first part of the movie. We updated the Linux-based remote visualization infrastructure so that it supports features such as the dynamic rescaling and resizes of the remote windows. And we introduced the support for Windows applications using expanding the application with the ability to launch stuff that is installed on your local workstation. Now, Compute and Display Manager 13.0 can actually control applications that are locally installed to open files and transfer files using a locally installed application, or as in this case, to use locally installed remote visualization applications such as Microsoft RDP Remote FX or HP RGS. And all what Compute Manager and Display Manager do with regards to jobs, whether they are batch or interactive, is done through PBS Pro. So all the good things that Sam and Jon told so far are apply also to these two products here. Yeah, that's it.
No, you have one more thing.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
One more thing. Well, actually, we're going to plug into this thing over here in a sec. If you could swap to the podium for us.
You should see now. And we got also recently an update. Not working yet?
Just unplug it, plug it in again.
Let's try again.
Oh, okay, well, let me try it again. Just one more thing.
See, I was right not trying for this.
Oh, no, it should be fine. Really?
Yeah. Should be. You see it now?
No?
No? Well, we can try later. We can try to make it
We'll
work.
try it later. We'll do it later. Not one more thing yet. Just forget I said anything. Okay.
Okay. Okay. plug in and unplug. Not really working. Apparently not.
You just have to hold it on. I see the flickering.
Well,
we'll try it again.
I can tell what's in here.
Okay,
and,
you can try that. Meanwhile, I'll try mine. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the latest development with our graphic interfaces is that we published recently an update to our iOS Compute Manager. So we have a client running on iOS devices, and soon we will publish also the same application for Android-based devices. And so if you have a Compute Manager installation, you can monitor the status of your jobs and see the files and so on also through.
It works for it works for my phone. It just doesn't work from your iPad.
I know.
Okay.
It's too new.
All right. So down here, Compute Manager.
Yeah. And this
For a second, anyway. It works for a second. Okay, there we go.
So the application is available already from the App Store. So if you want, you can download it now and try to see how our demo server works for you. And as you see, you can do things such as seeing the status of your jobs and clicking on files, whether they are graphics or text file. And we know it's still very limited. This is this is the second public release of this project, and we are bringing this forward, and this will hopefully play a major role in what we will be doing over the course of the next 12 months, trying to bring the same experience on all the platforms that are available today, mobile platform, desktop, and web interfaces. Thanks.
Cool. All right, switching back and switching to our last product manager up, Alhad.
Yeah, I look after software asset optimization. This is most probably something new to this user community. Most probably you have not heard of this at all. This was put under the umbrella of PBS Works last year, and only now we have. So only now it is, we decided to roll it out even to this community. Some of you might be interested in tracking software licenses. This was first brought to market in 2012. We are one of the newest game in town, and in the last 3 years, we have acquired about 50 customers, so we are very excited about it. The domain is all about tracking software usage based on acquiring data from license managers like FlexLM or Altair LMX, RLM, DSLS, IBM LUM, etc. So any software that uses any of those license managers, we can track. So what can we do today? I got one slide. He asked me to talk about this in one slide. So you can do this: right-sizing your license inventories, calculating chargebacks based on departmental and regional hierarchies, based on where the users are located or what department they work for, tuning HPCs in terms of how the license usage is for these solver jobs that run on HPCs. We do not track any hardware. PBSA does all that. And we are going to try and find a connection between the software availability and waiting times, etc. But that is going forward because I'm going to start looking after PBSA also from the product management side. Consolidating licenses from different vendor daemons. So these are some of the things that we already do. And we are slated for the next release coming in October, where we are putting in more sophisticated analytics for tracking package usage, like you might have seen from Siemens, where they package multiple features, multiple software features into a package, and you buy the package license, and then the IT admins go crazy that they don't really know if they are using all the features, whether they should buy a package or not, etc. Controlling features or automated reporting, so pushing out reports every week or every month automatically to people who have subscribed to them. And a very exciting new development for us in SAO is doing what-if analysis. So if you look at the graph next to this graph, what you see is we have a baseline license count of, say, 62 licenses. And then we have developed a simulator where we can do a what-if, doing a license count sweep, and for every license count, you measure some critical performance parameters like usage, runs, denials percentage as a percentage of runs, capacity utilization percentage, waiting time, or sustained peak usage. So the idea is you provide these data curves, and then the admins can look at what license level would be the most appropriate for them to have the right license inventories. The other thing that the same simulator will allow us to do is if you have 100 distinct users this year, and you're planning to add 50 for the next year, we perturb or we manipulate the transactional data from the past year, we push it through the simulator and create similar data curves, and you can look or mark off exactly what kind of licensing level might be most appropriate for the increased user load, or you can do the same thing for decreased user load. So this is going to be pretty exciting, and this is something that a lot of our customers have been talking about. I don't think there are too many competing systems that do this. This is promising to be a great differentiator. We are very excited about it, and if you want to know more, you can talk to me, you can catch hold of me in the exhibit area. I can walk you through some of the other things that we offer with SAO.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a couple of cards up here that I'll start with, and then I'm going to come into the audience. Let me just move our way back here. Stick our names up here. That is not our names. And I'm going to try not to answer these, so these are going to be for you guys in no particular order. Some of them are blank, so I'm making things up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding, actually. Discuss capabilities to include resource utilization, such as Xeon Phi or GPGPUs, in job logs, so there's better insight to the extent that these devices are being used by users and applications. I think that's for PBS Pro. I'll let the two gentlemen on the end arm wrestle for who's going to want to talk about that.
Can you repeat the question? Can you use that in a phrase?
Are you now, or have you ever been involved in putting GPGPU and Xeon Phi information in job logs?
Well, this past year we've been working with a couple different sites with Xeon Phis. Cherry Creek is one of them, and we've been working with them, and another site in Italy. By the way, that was a great country to go visit. I like that one. So if you're in any great countries, let me know what projects you want me to work on, and we can work something out. But we've made some changes, scheduling them, and we've also tried them with C groups. How do we put them in C groups? How do we utilize? We found out quite a few things that Xeon Phis do not like C groups, but at the moment. But coming to the resource utilization, by putting them, requesting them, showing them as resources used, I think they're showing up in the log files. So users seem to be happy. Cherry Creek seems to be running well on the other site. I think it's 700 Xeon Phis on that site, and I haven't heard any complaints to that order. So
that was, you just said it's available now, right? Is that what I heard? You said it's available now unless somebody lives in a really nice place around the world, in which case you need to go install
If you're
it.
available in Hawaii, I can make it available to you.
Okay, so it depends where you live.
If it's Minnesota,
Available in some-
can't go there. It's too cold.
It's restricted to certain regions of the world.
Certain regions of the world, yes.
Talk to John. When will SE Linux MLS support become generally available?
Tomorrow? No, just kidding. We're close. I got to say that. Basically, SE Linux was developed on PBS Pro 11.3, and so it's been a long time baking. The latest project has been to port it to 13.0, and we are targeting the next major release for general availability. So we're talking sometime in 2016. We will probably have, I don't know if it's still here, we're probably going to have a few beta releases, as Bill's mentioned, and it's probably going to be in one of those early betas. If anybody wants to give it a try, let us know, and we'll be glad to, help you set it up and see what you think.
What's the current demand here among people sitting here who actually run PBS for the SE Linux version of PBS? How many people are interested enough that they're like, hey, I'd like to see what that sort of looks like? What are we talking? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish. Cool. Wow. Okay. Switching from the cards now down to the floor. And I'll go back to the cards in a minute. But since we're being recorded, I need to carry this to you.
Thank you. Kind of a corollary to that, how many sites here are using PBS to process patient records or sensitive information and aren't running SE Linux?
Say that again?
How many sites are processing personal data, medical data, stuff covered by HIPAA?
Did you get that? Who's processing personally identifiable, HIPAA-covered private information with their PBS system? Just sort of one-ish? Okay. I think the conjecture is there will be more of you soon. Is it? Probably also, especially in the EU, I would bet. Other questions from the floor as long as I'm down here?
I've asked this before, but are there any plans to produce some kind of a job profile information at the end of a job? For example, say some job runs 17 hours. What's the memory consumption through that 17 hours? What's the I/O loads during those 17 hours? Some kind of a chart, at least.
I'm sorry, did you say chart-based?
Chart, and I've seen 3D, I think like CMU has a 3D visual image of the memory footprint or I/O footprint or CPU footprint.
Right now, I don't know of any. We don't. I mean, I know our analytics PM is here, but I don't know. Right now, we have a product called Analytics that will analyze PBS jobs over time, beautiful charts, a lot of NCPUs, everything that's available now in our accounting logs. Some of the things like I/O and whatnot aren't in our accounting logs right now, and I can't say that we're going to have anything. We don't have anything planned for the next release or two. So, but we always love to hear. We're looking to find out what people are interested in. So, if you wanted to give us a little more detail and ask about, Josh.
The distinguished gentleman in the back asks, are you talking about what happened now or what happened in the past on the system?
Duration of the job,
Yeah.
17 hours.
Okay, so if I understood that right, I didn't actually hear what he said, but I heard what he said last time. Let me give you my answer, which is we have actually, I think you're asking about sort of a performance profile of a job and then being able to attach that to a job. So your job runs, you'd like the sort of the performance profile of how it used, how much memory over time, how much I/O over time, that kind of thing. Okay, so we haven't focused really, I sort of feel like that's in the realm of programming tools, and we actually haven't focused almost at all in programming tools. I mean, to develop them ourselves. The place that we focused mostly is in building hooks to let you plug them in, although not performance profile tools. I don't know. Can we plug in a hook that would actually let you download a full performance profile that says here's how many messages you sent, here's how many whatever. If you'd have to plug something in at the start of a job and then pluck out the information at the end of a job.
What Jon was just mentioning is our support for C groups will make this kind of thing a lot easier. Because there are, what do you call them in C groups?
Well,
Methods.
I'll stand up. Thanks a lot, Sam. No, in C groups you have tasks, and those tasks, they keep a recording of how much memory you used, how much CPU time you used. And so you have that information. In 13.0 in the periodic hook section, we added it so each periodic hook knows which jobs are on the node. And so if that was something interesting to you, you could then write your own periodic hook that would query the C group and just dump that information out to a file so you could see it on a node level, and then if you wanted to compile it. So the capabilities there, we just haven't had the demand to turn that into a product. Now, to come to your point, that's sort of what hooks are to do, right? Prototype out, see if you want to do it. If you have a specific behavior you want, then we make that available to you. And, if once you answer that question, you may say, I don't want that performance hit, or that really wasn't that interesting, or I only want to enable it on it, when I'm first running this job to get a feel for what that job does. So that capability is there, and the distinguished gentleman in the back with the beard, I'm sure he'd be happy to help you write that book.
That was a much better answer than I was giving.
But
I was sort of saying,
you're welcome to talk to me. I'm the PM over C groups, working with that. I'm also the product manager over hooks. So if that was something important, talk to me. I can show you the steps how to do that, or we can work with the distinguished gentleman in the back, and we'll be good.
Yeah, and let me add that with regards to profiling, there is actually, we use the same type of technology, the hooks and monitoring hooks, to actually track power. The power usage of the job is tracked through that mechanism. The interfaces tap into the platform's available tools, and they are able to tell you how much you use it of a resource such as energy at the end of the job. But I think that the way you want to do that depends on what you want to achieve. If you want to profile the performance of an application, of a job, then probably you want a resolution that is not what you get from an accounting log. Depending on what you want to achieve, probably having a single line that summarizes what the job did is not what you want. So probably the case is to be debated a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to have you guys up here. Much better answer than I was about to give.
Yeah, so just to add to that too, is when you want to identify or profile a jobs out, let's say there's a difference. User A runs a job and it takes 1 hour. User B, he has hand-me-down scripts given to him. He runs the job, it takes 2 hours, and they're saying, what's the difference? So if we could profile one of those jobs, like what Jon said, being able to select which job to profile. I can't imagine profiling 1 million jobs a day with that. That's going to be a hit, right? So, but if you can select one, say, yes, go ahead and do that, and then you can look, oh, that's what that job's supposed to be doing, and this is what this job is doing over here for this guy. So maybe there's some kind of bottleneck someplace we can identify that way. So I think that's what I'm looking for. Anyways, okay.
One thing with the periodic hook things that you can do, like Jon mentioned, it will query individual jobs, and you can grab whatever value using whatever tool you want and put it into a custom resource belonging to that job, and then that will get saved off into the accounting logs. So you could basically save your information after the job finishes that way. And as the job's running, you could observe, what's happening in that custom resource. Is it growing unexpectedly? So there's different ways in PBS today that you can do these sorts of things.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to hit another question. Same topic, or? Perfect. I'm coming to you. When will 13.1 be out? When will you change the number to 13.1 because they don't like .0 releases?
We have a 13.0.1 out right now. It's available for download on the customer site. Our 13.1 release is targeted for Q4 of this year.
We hope to make it a nice Christmas present for you, so.
It's, something to do instead of spend time with your family. Speaking of hooks, where can we share our hooks with others? Can't imagine my hooks are going to be that unique. Be nice to share.
Right. Well, before I got lost in Altair, I did quite a bit of hook writing, and when I left, I did post those hooks on the user forum. So there's some hooks posted there. If that's something I think it would be a good place to put them. For now, we don't have a GitHub repository for our users' hooks, but the user forum, put a hook, what you've done, and users can search them there. Like I said, I have 3 or 4 out there right now. So.
And one comment too, I know at an IAB meeting a couple of years ago, we asked our members that were attending, how many of you would be willing to share the hooks you've written with the world? Could I ask that question again here? If your site writes a hook, how many of you would be willing to post it on our website so that other companies or sites could use it? Okay, a few. That's good. That's more than there were at the last time I asked that question.
It's the requisite 7. When you ask a question, 7 people raise their hands. Because when I said, could you sit? 7 people. Just
okay, how about now?
Okay.
No.
Okay, neat.
I just have a question about the iOS app security portion of it, because I would love to have that for our users, but getting that past our security team is going to be a nightmare. And so can you just talk about some of the security that you've put in place so that the security team will allow that to be exported out to the world?
The application running on iOS requires to talk to a compute manager instance right now. It doesn't talk directly to PBS Pro, it needs to talk to compute manager. And it does so using HTTPS. And given that it has to reach the compute manager server, probably that's within a controlled network. So probably you already have a VPN client installed on your phone and so on. If the connection between the app and your cluster was not the subject of the question, then you have to clarify me a little bit more what you intend by security, though.
That is it.
Okay. And would that meet your requisite? Do you have a stricter one?
The security team I deal with, I'm not even sure if they know what their rules are. So it's just to give ammunition on, we'd like to get HTTPS exported. That's, kind of something that they'd understand. Is it just password? Can we add like a token authentication, or is it just username, password?
Security and encryption is, we receive a lot of inquiries lately about that, and what we got on the roadmap for Compute and Display Manager is to encrypt every channel and to authenticate every connection. That's, or 90% of that is already done. And we integrated the products with things as Munch and Espinego and for single sign-on in Windows operated environments and so on. So we are doing everything that we believe is needed to ensure security. But I mean, if you have particular requirements, or if you would like to try, I mean, the thing that I would like to know is what doesn't work yet at the level that that is needed to deploy these tools into your.
So can we come talk to your security people?
Yeah, I think that's the next step.
Since they don't have any published rules, I guess we need to talk. Okay, excellent. From the floor, while I'm down here? I'll make you have a question by walking back up. For PBS Pro 13, has there been any enhancements to the C API? And is there a documentation available?
No.
And there's a two-part question.
Now I think every new interface that we introduce will have an equivalent C API, and we do have a programmer's guide available that should include any information on new APIs that we've introduced. Is that Rome?
There actually is along with the creation and deletion and query of resources, you can query resources, the definitions of resources. And that was, well, it was actually in the C API before. We actually exposed it and fully support it now.
Rome is one of our scheduling developers, if in case anybody hasn't met him yet.
He'll be on the panel tomorrow. So this is your time to think overnight about, okay, well, these guys, these silly PMs really didn't know the technology that was going on. What I want to know is why this thing doesn't work that way. And you can ask Rome tomorrow about it if it's about the scheduler. I'm going to switch back to a card in a minute, but okay, just so you know, they're blank now, so I'm asking my own questions, but it looks like I have questions here. I learned that from TV. Okay. What's our target for scalability? What are you going to give us for 14?
The best product ever, right?
Perfect. Okay. Next. Do you have a target? I mean, do we have?
Target
what are we looking at?
scalability. Well, there's two fronts. 14.0, we're targeting 100,000 plus moms. So we're working through those issues. We know some of you are 10, 20. I mean, we're getting up to the 20,000 node count, so we want to make sure we're above that and working well. The test we did, we ran up to 25,000 nodes, and things ran really well on 13.0. We just want to make sure we're at 100,000 plus for 14. As for the scalability on the throughputs, targeting 10,000 jobs a minute is what we're targeting. Hopefully that's sufficient for those that run 10,000 jobs in a day. We'd like to make sure we can schedule them in a minute. But those are the two sides of scalability that we're targeting. 10,000 jobs per minute, 100,000 moms.
Cool. Is that enough? Too much? Not enough. Okay.
I couldn't resist, John, so you brought it up. So, so one of the things that I have once in a while is an accidental recursive submission. and they end up causing a lot of trouble. So I'm relatively new to PBS, but is there a flag that we can set to maximum pending jobs on the system?
Good question. Thanks. I was getting a little bored sitting down. In 13.0, we did introduce something called queued job threshold. And what that allows is it doesn't block job arrays, but it blocks regular jobs. And what it says is how many jobs is a user allowed to have in a queued state in a queue. So not how many jobs can he have running, max jobs, right? The maximum number of jobs he can have in the queue, but how many can he have in the queued state of a queue? And so if a user wants to go crazy and submit 100,000 jobs, knock yourself out. We'll leave them in a routing queue. We'll say you can have 1,000 in an execution queue, and we'll just chunk through them as fast as we can. So that sort of is a good attempt at saying we can't block the users from doing stupid stuff, but we can block them from really fouling up the PBS environment. And so that's something we did introduce in 13.0. Did that answer your question, Ed?
Can you think of a way of detecting a recursive job? Can we use hooks to detect a recursive job submission and do something?
It's a hard question in the sense that you can put these checks, but how do I really know that you made a dumb mistake and screwed up on your for loop and put 2 extra zeros in there, right? How do I really know that? I know when I was managing, we had one user, bless his heart, he was a Georgia Tech intern for us, and he tried to submit 1.6 million jobs on PBS and just dropped us. And so and Elle's over there laughing because she was the one working with this user with me. And so this would have blocked that. Or, PBS is okay having 1.6 million jobs. It's just not okay when it hits the scheduler and everything else, and we try to do that. So that was to block the intern foolishness that we encountered.
Another kind of neat feature too is the priority threshold. So, PBS has this fancy formula that you can assign different priorities to different jobs. And we've introduced a new feature where you can set a threshold for the priority so that if a job's priority is below the threshold, the scheduler won't even look at it. So that helps kind of improve our, scheduling cycle times and things like that. So that might be another, if you could look at how many jobs the user has in the queue, and if he has 1 million of them, he's going to be given a priority of 0 and whatever.
Okay. Now this is where I warned you that I was going to do this. I'm going to ask you guys some questions because these guys always have questions, and they say, well, what do our users do? Our users really use that? So I'm going to put you on the spot. So think about those questions that you wanted to ask them, and I'll just start it out with a couple. So. And I ask this sort of every time, how many people have some Windows stuff that they would like to push through PBS? Ooh, okay, really? How many people who are listening to me right now can raise your hand? Ooh, okay. Wow, was that 0, really? Nobody has any Windows stuff they want to push through PBS? Okay. No, it's just the people here. It was so uniform before, but yeah. No, I know there's people in the world, but it's a good, this is a pretty good cross section. Okay. How many people are actually how many people actually have GPUs in their system that are running? So that's like more than that probably is like 70%. Xeon Phis, fewer, but still a lot. Something that's not an Intel architecture chip that's running. Just a couple. And how many of you might actually think about using ARM if it actually came out, or at least building a test system with it? Ooh, more than actually have non-Intel architecture chips. Okay? Okay, you guys. I'm getting the answers to my questions that I want. Really? You all the time you come to me and say, does anybody use X?
I have a great question. So, I have a good question, not a great question. We can determine if it's great later. Some of the things, like Sam mentioned about, for me, thank you, Sam, I wasn't going to bring it up, is, we did talk about, well, today our keynote speaker talked about how they use this penalty to penalize people for requesting, 1 week wall time and they wanted to run 2 hours. And, how that really messes up backfilling. Some of the stuff we've been working on, or I felt was important, and I saw that. I know human behavior. Human behavior is, once it's working, I don't want to get bothered. I don't want to change it, and as long as it's not killing my jobs, I'm okay. So we are prototyping and working on to deliver a feature called soft wall time, where the admin, right now we're looking at, can the user set it? And we all know what the user will do if they set it. 1 second, move on, right? I want that. And we're looking at doing predictive wall times. How can we look at the accounting logs? How can we look at history and put that in so that our scheduler can make better decisions knowing that the user's not going to give us any good information? And we're looking at that. Now, I don't know if anybody's interested in working with us on that. We have some prototypes and we're doing that. We're working on delivering that because the end goal is we really want to improve calendar performance. You know, as some people, as Andrew, I'm looking at you, Andrew, and as others have experienced, sometimes the scheduling cycle just goes on and on because we're trying to calendar difficult things. Thomas is now waving, okay. Oh, you have a comment, okay. And the end goal is reduce our calendaring time, make our scheduling times faster, but also doing better decisions, trying to predict what the user really wants based on his request, based on his past history.
So the comment I want to make is I feel the frustrations throughout the years asking users how long their jobs will run. I don't think they will make educated guess. They'll just give us some ballpark number, which is always wrong. Can we use analytic data to find a pattern that what they did before and try to predict the changes in the job submissions so it will be a more close to the reality, and then we put a soft limit there with 1 point whatever times will be the hard limit to
well,
do it
that's what we're looking at right now. Right now we're putting the soft limit capability in there that will schedule, backfill, do things off of, except we won't schedule a job for a reservation unless we know it's going to end because we don't want to block reservations, right?
But there's still the human input at the end of the day.
We're trying to eliminate. Well, this is the goal, is to look at the analytics, look at what we request, look at what the maximum of our queues is, and they're going to say the maximum my job can run is this. Does this fit in my limits for my queues? And then we want to look at their data and say, you know what, we know that Thomas really runs a bunch of 4-hour jobs, even though he asked for 168. We're going to guess that he's going to run a 4-hour job. And reality is we don't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure that we're not giving away all these resources on the understanding that it's a week job when it's really a 4-hour job. So there's a lot to prototype, work through, but at the end of the day, my goal is to better predict turnover and help us get away from asking these users, are you going to run 4 hours, 10 hours a week? But we just say this queue, you know, if your job runs longer than a week, we're going to kill you, but here's what we're guessing, right? We won't let the job go beyond the week. Does that make sense? So is that something that people would be interested in working with us on, or? So, all right, well, come talk to me afterwards and we can, I'm looking to find people, like we said in our beta program, and if you're in Hawaii, I'll put you at the top of the list. Or if you're in a nice European country that's warm, that doesn't rain every day, I'll put you at the top of the list. Okay, good chocolate. We'll look for good chocolate too. But no, that's the end of the day. We're looking for 3 customers who are willing to work with us in the sense that we can give you a new scheduler, we can get your logs, we can look at it and really iterate and partner with you to help deliver something. If you can't get me the data or you're not willing to test something out until it's .2, .3, .4 release, you know, then it doesn't really help us iterate quickly and deliver you something. And our goal is to iterate with you, find something that 3 people are happy with, and then we can move it to a production, a GA product.
Just to piggyback on what this other gentleman was talking about too, I worked many years as a user doing a lot of computer simulations to predict from history how long a particular user's job is going to run. I think would be a mistake because I work different projects. Sometimes I'm working simple models that may run in 30 minutes. In the next project, I get maybe a 3D nonlinear model that it's an iterative solution that may go for hours and hours. So
correct.
You can't predict that.
So he really wants to beta test is what you're saying. Okay, good.
We clearly need you as a beta customer then.
No, I fully understand that users do different products. And our goal is, you know, if you give us a wall time, if you give us a week, even if we're 2% wrong, right, or 5% wrong, to give the scheduler something better to work with than 168 hours, if that's your limit, I think in the end, will give you a much better backfilling windows than others, because reality is we know that those times aren't accurate. And can we look at a queue, look at a job type of thing and say, on average, these jobs run 10 hours, or 95% of these jobs will end in 10 hours. That's statistically speaking across our whole site. Maybe we're 5% wrong, but does that really allow us to do what we want?
And it may not just be user, it may also be application, it may be size of the model, it may, there'll be different things that might go into the estimate that gets, used by the job. Yeah,
Well, we know even the weatherman can't predict weather, so I can't predict the time to predict weather. Agreed, but if the user specifies 168 hours for that, and then he specifies 24 for another, we can say, okay, these are different categories. It'll be a challenge. I'm not saying it's a perfect, but I'd like to wade into that storm and see how bad it is.
So how does the user know how much wall time a job's taken?
What?
How does a user know how much wall time a completed job has taken? What information does PBS give to them to give them a number they can feed back into their submission?
So how does a user find out how much wall time they used?
Yeah.
So there's two things.
Where do that's not delivered to them? It's an piece of accounting information available to the administrator.
If you have job history.
Yeah.
So we've actually got a hook that writes at the end of the .o file for every job, their wall time usage, their memory usage, why the job exited, so if it exited successfully or there was a signal or something like that. So we've basically put that at the end of every .o file. It's just a hook at the end of the job that does that.
See, I knew you wanted a hook in your environment, Simon, and he just provided you the use case.
Altair supported. Request for an Altair supported hook that does exactly what you just said. So if you could send that to us.
Where's that guy in the beard go, that respectable gentleman in the back? Oh, dang, he's over at that back now. Okay. Yes.
Looking at really simple information like the job name actually helps to. I don't need that. You know that.
You don't, but our listeners at home won't hear you otherwise.
Are you sure? You're saying I'm not loud enough? So sometimes they only submit with the exact same job name if the job is actually the same, even in weather. So if they change the model, then they change a string somewhere. So really simple things like if the name of the job is actually exactly the same thing except for the date string at the beginning, then we know how much wall time it's going to take, and otherwise we don't.
And,
exactly.
And in 13.0, we gave you more than 15 character job names. So everybody upgrade to 13.0 so that you can use more characters in your job name. But to come back to your point, in this predictive wall time, their answer is, I'm not smart enough to predict all your wall times. I don't know what the keys are, but if you work with us, we can build something that says, maybe we do need to use the job name as part of what we predict off of, and allow you to say, do you want to use job name in your predictions? Do you want to use the queue, or do you want to use the number of CPUs, or how much memory they ask for, or how much wall time they requested, and then say, okay, this is what they normally ask for. Can we predict with 95% confidence?
We should move on from wall time, but.
Sorry, we'll move on. I'm sorry, we're done. Oh, you have a question?
I was just going to comment. You have to look at it the other way, kind of, because in the one case where you have 95% of your jobs run in less than 1 hour, right? There's only 5% that run more than 1 hour. So if you're 95% right, that's a pretty darn good thing. And then only 5% wrong, which means you're not killing any jobs. They're just, you have to correct for them later. So it's a really good thing to have this predictive analytics functionality. Yeah.
So we're hoping, but that's something that we have the capability that we're putting into the 14.0 beta that we will be starting. The question is now, how do we set those wall times? Give you something that can look at your logs and set those wall times, and how do we do it in a reasonable fashion that makes sense? So that's something that if you're interested, please find me. We'll move on since Bill said I'm done.
Well, there could be other topics, that's all.
Okay, I'll ask a question which is like not related to wartime and is a kind of like high-level questions too. I see in these user groups like we don't have much of the national labs people like the big names here. So it, to me is I'm not saying you guys are not the big names, but like, you know, the crazy people, okay. So I'm a bit concerned that like how PBS Pro retain like the leadership in the resources manager market when competing with like your competitors like Slurm and those people. I know some of the big names people, they work very hard with on those projects and the improvement is great. So I just want to see how you react and stay competitive in the market here.
You want to do it? You want me to take it?
Sam? Oh, Bill.
They're pointing to me. So, we have some, well, the Department of Energy seems to like Slurm. The U.S. Department of Defense and NASA and INL and a whole bunch of other, leading edge places seems to like PBS Pro. I'm sure there are other leading sites that like, other things that aren't either of those. So I think we have a pretty good set of, leaders in terms of people driving us towards exascale, for example. So I'm not worried about, do we have systems that are too big for us to handle? Okay. That we can play on. So to the broader question, it's just, competition is actually good. Competition is what keeps, us from being complacent and making sure that we deliver the stuff that you really want in a timely fashion. And that, sometimes we don't, and we do hear from you. And sometimes you can point to the competition and we can go, yeah, you're right, we should do that. And so I actually think that's helpful too. So I don't know if that's a good answer, a good enough answer for you, but I feel like we have a lot of really large systems, biggest systems in the world kind of thing that map better to what people are doing in industry and what people are doing in production. I think some of the number, the top 1, 2, 3 systems on the top 500 list are super unique. I'm not sure how much can trickle down from them. But the number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 through 50, oh yeah. And we're in a bunch of those. So, question, as I see another hand, I'm going to ask you guys a question. So we're starting to do some stuff with data management, data-aware scheduling. Even Jim alluded to some other data management stuff we're doing. How many people are sort of putting in place some kind of burst buffery thing in your site, say in the next year or year and a half? 1, 2, 3, 3-ish? Okay, so not 0, which is what I got for Windows. All right. I know, I can swear one of you asked me just a week ago, if we only knew if our customers did X, that would be so helpful. What was that?
I have one other question, actually, probably not the same one. How many of you or your users are dependent on our estimated wall time feature to know when their jobs are going to run? Usually, okay. One of the optimizations we're thinking of making to reduce load is basically only estimating every 10 cycles, so that it isn't, to reduce the amount of effort made every scheduling cycle, so that your estimated wall times might be a little stale. Would that be a major problem for customers, or,
Let me ask it more broadly, because I think that's a good direction that we're going in the future, which is we're taking, and you can ask the engineering team tomorrow if you want to know more. We're starting to think about changing some of the underlying algorithms that we're using from being very deterministic to being a little more fuzzy, basically. So what that's going to do is that's going to really speed up the scheduling cycle, but it's going to also be a little more fuzzy. So we won't necessarily know exactly what's going to happen. That's why we're testing a bunch of stuff to see how much it perturbs the schedule. So how many people need the absolute determinism to know exactly what's going to happen, or is fuzzy okay if we can get our scheduling cycle down to, a few seconds instead of a minute or two? Is that a reasonable trade-off to make? I'm just letting you know. If you have any comments about that, you can let us know, because we're probably going to do it anyway.
And Bill, just to, oh, sorry.
Let me put it another way. If it's going to run in 3 weeks, I don't want to know if it runs in 3 weeks or 3 weeks and 1 second.
Also the underlying point is, to be that deterministic, you have to trust that the wall times are accurate. And the wall times are not accurate, so we're spending a lot of time trying to be accurate using inaccurate times. So yes, there we go.
I'm heading in the back. I'll be right there. Meanwhile, read your email. Okay, almost there.
Why would you have to have it one way or the other? Just let it be an option.
Yeah, I mean, that is another thing. We could, put a little slide bar in there to say, 100% accurate, or, who cares? So.
Well, coming along
accurate's not, I think John's right. Accurate's not the right characterization. It's do you want it deterministic and based on bad wall times, or do you want it non-deterministic and possibly based on guessed wall times?
Well, the other thing is, and there is something we are introducing with calendar and performance in 14.0, as we're looking at saying, we're going to start, you can get the accurate option, and it's an option you turn on. You can't hear me back there?
Here you go.
Sorry, Bill. Now I've been accused of being too quiet. So this week's been a rough week. I've been too loud and now too quiet. So we are doing some things in calendar and performance for 14.0, and one of those is saying, currently when we calendar, we go event by event on a second basis. So everything that happens in 1 second, we move on. And we're saying, you know what, that's probably not the best way, because if a bunch of people submit 1,000 1-second jobs, a second apart, we're going to spend 1,000 times to move 1,000 seconds forward in time, which takes a lot of time to schedule. No dirty looks from the developer yet, so I'm okay. And what we're looking at, and we've done some optimizations in our, profiling of the code, and we said, what happens if we, move 5 minutes into the future and say all the events that happened 5 minutes into the future, and then try to calendar and say, do I have enough resources there? Then move another 5 minutes and so forth until we move far enough that we have an open area. Dirty looks yet? Somewhere, a little different, but along those lines, that we're not going to take every second, every event, but we're going to take a little broader, bigger steps and look at those windows there instead of on a second-by-second basis to see if everything lined up, could I sneak this 1-hour job in here or not? And that we've seen to improve calendaring significantly.
So I think what we're hoping to do actually is I can even move forward probably in here, can't I? What we're hoping to do and what we will do, so we're going to try out some of these ideas, and we're going to find some of you who are interested in them, and we're going to see if they work or not, and you're going to tell us when they don't work, and then we're not going to do those. So hopefully that'll make it work for everyone.
But right, to answer his question, we are putting a slider in there that says, how much do I care? An inaccurate data.
How many calls do I want to get in the middle of the night? 7 a week? 2 a week? You just sort of move the slider back and forth. Let me change a tiny bit and ask another question to the crowd. So, how many people have? What's the right way to ask this? I was going to ask something about software, but I kind of wanted quantitative. So let me ask: how many people are spending, at least say $50,000 a year on commercial software outside of the middleware and us and other things like other things? More than sort of a couple $100,000 a year? Okay, so please go. All right, so and how many people really don't see the application software cost as an issue at all? So how many people are sort of like, we don't really have an application software problem, mostly we write our own, or mostly we're running open source or something, just from an application software point? Okay, so there's a good space for for sort of measuring how much we're using. Do you have any other questions in that regard? No?
There is something that triggered my attention in, I think it was in the Imperial College talk by Simon. He was telling that users do submit a lot of jobs and they do not really know what's going on. And that's something that I've been hearing more. I mean, working with the graphic interface, so that is something that is more towards the end users and not something that is really targeted for admins. But I was wondering if there is anything that, so the thing I'm struggling is, how do users want to deal with such a large number of jobs? Because I am really not able to think that anybody would be willing to look at a list of like 2,000, 3,000 jobs and go through each one of them and understand what's going wrong with it. And even when they submit job arrays, they are not probably interested in the status of each single sub-job, but rather in a sort of a summary or something like that. So how do your users deal with such cases? I mean, do they develop their own tools? Are there third-party software that submit the workflow and then also tell if it went wrong or well? Because that's something that I'm struggling with when thinking of Compute Manager, when it comes to dealing with listing in a web pages the status of machines that have potentially 100 of thousands of jobs. So there are performance issues there, and I'm not even sure that's the right direction to go. We could try to work and fix that, so make the listing of jobs really performing and everything, but maybe that's not what's needed. So I was wondering, how your users deal with that?
Cool. I'm going to actually suggest, given timing that we have, that I want to do one more thing with these guys, and then I'm going to let us all go. So please go find Dario once we end this and help him out. If you have thousands of jobs, and if individual users are submitting thousands of jobs at a time, he's really interested in trying to figure out how better to display that back, or if he even needs to, because that's computationally expensive for him. So let me put you guys on the spot and ask you, all right, imagine yourselves at the next PBS user group. What do you want to be saying there about the wonderful thing we've just delivered? Or make some future prediction, and I'll leave it up to you as to what you want to say, either about our software, about the audience, or about the market itself, the high performance computing space.
14.0 will be out very soon.
Awesome.
I'd like to be able to show you the results of 100,000 moms and how fast we were able to spin that up, show you the results of reaching 10,000 jobs per second, or per minute. Per second's even more impressive, but we'll just go per minute.
I think we have that on tape now.
Okay. And then I'd also like to be able to have that predictive wall time, working, at a couple different sites and hearing from them next year how well they liked it. So that's what I'd like to see.
Cool.
I would like to present the Compute and Display Manager on the mobile platforms.
Excellent.
Okay, I have to say something. So I guess it's high time that this user group starts investing and spending a lot on commercial software. I don't think there's enough spending going on. That's why you don't really care at this point. And hopefully in a year it will change and everybody will be clamoring for SAO and right-sizing their licensing inventories. So let's hope for the best. Thanks.
All right. Thank you guys very much for being good sports. Thank you all.
Thank you.